Well, it is fabulous to be here. And before I get started, I want to give a shout out to a new organization in town that is supporting literacy and reading and writing for young'uns in Kalamazoo. Some of you may have heard of an organization in Chicago and also in Ann Arbor called 826 Michigan. Well, we have Read and Write Kalamazoo, which is doing that work, and we're all going to support it. And they were, a lot of you who came to my book party gave money in support of Read Write Kalamazoo, and we raised about $200 for them. So if any of you want to check out their materials or see what they're doing or see about volunteering or giving some more dough or whatever. Before we get started, again, I want to give a shout out to Dean selling books for Michigan News. We should all bumper stickers. The bumper stickers say, buy books from Dean. And I also want to give a shout out for Craig Vestal of Portage Printing, who just helped me and encouraged me to create everything I could think of for the book. So, including life-size Flannery O'Connor and Joyce Carol. The minute I said it, he would just make it. The minute I said something, Craig would create it. So there are also some fabulous bracelets that say tell on them, and it's because I want people to tell their stories, even if they're rough stories. I want them to tell them. So get a bracelet on the way out. He made me some fabulous bookmarks, and on the bookmark is the first story that I am going to read to you. The entire story is on a bookmark. And I think we have other stuff too, but you know, I get distracted. I rode my bike here in the rain, in a dress, because life is short. I know my dress is too, but maybe that's why my dress is short, because life is short. I want to dedicate this reading to my mom, who is sitting here in the back, or in the middle here. She's kind of hiding out. And because it's dedicated to her, I am going to read an essay about Mom as part of this evening's festivities. And she's going to probably blush if she's still got it in her. I'm not sure. But be sure to stop and talk to her before you leave. And she's fun to talk to. My brother George is here too. Yay! He will blush for sure. Okay, this is called Sleepover. Ed and I were making out by candlelight on the couch. Pammy was in my bedroom with Ed's brother. She wanted to be in the dark because her face was broke out. We were wishing your head could be on Pammy's body, Ed said. You two together would make the perfect girl. I took it as a compliment. Unlike Pammy, I was flat-chested. Ed kissed my mouth, my throat, my collarbone. He pressed his pelvis into mine. The full moon over the driveway reminded me of a single headlamp or a giant eyeball. Ed's tongue was in my ear when Mom's car lights hit the picture window. Ed slid to the floor and whistled for his brother, who crawled from the bedroom on hands and knees. They scurried out the screen door into the backyard and hopped the fence. Pammy and I fixed our clothes and hurriedly dealt a hand of Michigan rummy by candlelight. You girls are going to ruin your eyes, Mom said, switching on the table lamp. When Mom went to change her clothes, Pammy whispered that she'd let Ed's brother go into her pants. Her hair was messed up, so I smoothed it behind her ear. Too bad this show isn't in color, Pammy said later when we were watching Frankenstein. While the doctor was still cobbling together body parts, Pammy fell asleep with her small, pretty feet on my lap. I stayed awake, though, and watched the men from the town kill the monster. I can't believe I left 2 words. I'm sure I had all the words. I left 2 words out of the last sentence. Because this is brand new, this book just came out last week. And can you believe, like, it's got these good reviews? It's out of this world. I can't believe it. I'm, like, sort of stoned out of the excitement of it. I mean, I was stoned just from having a big party at the Old Dog Tavern. And then to have, like, a good New York Times book review. I think Dean's got a copy of it back there. And there was a nice NPR review. And so, well, all good so far. We'll take it. I'm going to read the story that really is about my sister because she's not here, even though somebody might have. Okay. But she had to work. So if anybody has a job, she's a home health care aide. And you guys know how they get yanked around? It's awful. Somebody should just hire her. Just like 40 hours a week and hire her. Because it's terrible. They make you work. She has to work like 60 hours a week. This story is not really about her, but it's sort of about her. And this is another one of these very short stories. So I'm gonna read it. It's kind of a different tone. They talk about palliative care being so advanced. I think we all hear on the radio that they've got it that under control, right? Nobody's in pain anymore. But people are in pain. And so I wrote this story just to try to explore that. So, and I also read this if I read again, you'll have to hear it again. My sister is in pain. Unbearable pain when she gets up in the morning to go to work. Pain when she goes to bed at night. When she sleeps in pain and wakes up again in pain and dresses in her stretch waist pants and bright, complicated sweaters, heats up meals from packages, substitutes low-fat margarine for butter, sucralose for sugar, and smokes cigarettes in pain on her porch while squirrels scramble like idiots up trees and cars without mufflers vomit smoke and clatter through this neighborhood of potholes and broken windows where kids steal anything to get money to buy meth. Her doctors shrug in their lab coats and they send her to specialists who throw up their arms. Pain like airplanes with their airplane engine noise flying over and messing up the sky. Pain like dishes in the sink, not just her own dishes, but dishes of strangers who've left them there for days in cold, gray water. She is our mother's daughter, but we don't know who she is or what her pain could mean. Her cicadas of pain on summer nights, the jolts in her spine like flashes of red-hot fireflies, pain that radiates from her intestines like the shocks of electric eels, stabbing pain 60 hours a week as she bathes and medicates and feeds and tends to the needs and the pain of others for just about minimum wage. Throbbing pain when she has a day off. She was born more beautiful than the rest of us, and she called out more loudly from her crib, cried in her bed, and outside in the woods she wailed. She never said what those boys did to her beside the creek. Imagine a long corridor with hundreds of rooms all closed against pain. She walks down the corridor and her pain does not diminish, whether or not she stops and knocks on any door, whether or not anyone invites her in for a cool drink, whether or not one of the people who invites her in for a cool drink is myself. Still, her pain does not diminish. We rarely call her, are polite at Christmas, give tentative embraces, compliment her sweaters, her beads, her hair bows. We nod when she explains about the special shoes she's wearing, her copperware as seen on TV. The gifts she brings us are elaborately wrapped. We untie the ribbons in terror. So, I know that's rough, but you know that's what the work of story writing is. If you've got a problem that has an easy solution, just go out and solve it. Yeah. But if a problem doesn't have a solution, that's when you've got something worth writing about. So that's one way to look at what fiction can do, and I guess to some degree, poetry and nonfiction as well. So I'll read just the very beginning of the other story about that my sister inspired. She's a phlebotomist. And it's it's called Blood Work. And I was still obsessed with, I'm still obsessed with Y2K. I don't know about you guys. I'm still obsessed with it. When Marika got home from working at the, this is called Blood Work 1999. When Marika got home from working at the hospital on December 30th, she hung up her parka and put the day's mail on the folding table and sat at the creaky wooden rocking chair her granny had given her before dying. In a few minutes, she would go downstairs and help serve dinner in the Good Works kitchen, from which the smell of tonight's entree, turkey tetrazzini, now wafted. She stood at the window to see the cardboard sign across the street, saw the 2 days to the end had been changed to 1 day to the end. She didn't know who lived there, but she'd been counting down with the occupant for months. The smartest people she knew, her mom, her bosses at the hospital, the volunteer coordinator at the Good Works kitchen, had assured her that nothing was going to happen tomorrow at midnight, and she had no reason to doubt them. The first envelope she opened was from the Africa Children's Fund, and from the enclosed brochure, a malnourished brown toddler beseeched her with his eyes to send money. Ever since Marika had exhausted her granny's inheritance, she'd been unable to send much to the agencies asking for help. But she always unfolded and read carefully the pages containing personalized letters, descriptions of famine victims, postcards of abandoned kittens, complimentary address stickers. Today, she received the most horrifying depiction of cruelty she'd ever seen. A picture of a chimpanzee some hunters had illegally caught and were selling in an Asian marketplace. They'd stretched and pinned the body as if for crucifixion. The accompanying letter explained that its body parts would be cut off and sold, some while the creature was alive, some as delicacies, others as folk remedies. Nobody was protecting the chimpanzees. After reading the letter and brochure, Marika folded the pages back into the envelope and placed it in her animal pile. She also had a disease pile, a poverty pile, a refugee pile, and a pile for natural disasters. All the piles wiggled as her table rocked on the uneven floor, and though she considered sticking some of the envelopes under the table leg, she thought better of it and went to the kitchenette to find some cardboard from a cereal box to wedge there. Marika's mother was furious with her for squandering her inheritance on those damn causes. She said, "You've got nothing to show for the money." "I don't need anything to show," said Marika. "I just want to help." "The more you help, the more they're going to want from you. There is no end to need." Marika's favorite cousin was spending her inheritance on her upcoming wedding, while her brother had bought a used minivan. Her older sister, who put the money into an emergency fund, said just last weekend that Marika had better lose some weight before being fitted for her pink bridesmaid's dress. She added, "Or else you're going to look like a butterbint." Marika knew this sort of meanness was just her sister's habit, and her sister loved her plenty. Her sister was going to help her with the makeup to cover her acne, which had gotten worse recently, maybe because she was eating a lot of cheap, sweet snacks. Marika's interest in worthy causes had begun seven years ago with her fundraising drive for the Teen Testicular Cancer Foundation, promoting early detection of the disease that had afflicted her high school boyfriend, Anthony. I'm just going to leave it there. So that's the sort of stuff. I'm trying to read a little bit from each story just to see. You never know which stories are going to read okay, until you actually try reading them. And then usually the first time you read them, it goes badly. And then you sort of have to learn how to read a story in public. So I hope to leave some time for questions. But I just want to say that anybody who writes a book called Mothers Tell Your Daughters has got to expect to be asked about her own mother, and I just thought I'd get that conversation started right here. In my novel, Once Upon a River, the protagonist, Margot Crane's mother, was a runaway. My mother, Susanna, was the opposite. She stuck around home. When everybody was running around and running away in the 1960s and 70s, my mom had to be there to milk the cow twice a day. She's lived a life of challenges and personal trials, mostly brought on by her own determined character. She raised a heap of kids by herself, her own kids and other people's. The price she paid for always being there was that other people showed up for the free babysitting. Sometimes neighbors or cousins stayed the whole summer. She was a horsewoman, and so she became a horse trader. She also became the one the local farmers called in to help deliver their difficult calves. She has also had a partying spirit. She loves to spend time listening to music and telling stories. She wants literature to entertain and relieve her from stress, to smooth out life's edges. And so she has me instead. She still hopes I'll write a murder mystery or something with some good folkloric humor and not something that always causes more worry. Nonetheless, a lot of what I've learned about writing has come from her, and the first thing I learned was to work hard. From the time I was 7 years old and Mom was a single parent struggling to feed lots of kids, she had 8 acres of land, a few outbuildings, and a pasture where she kept a horse. So after the divorce, she figured she could get free runt piglets. I think, can you still get free runt piglets? I don't know if you can. It used to be the farmers would give you the little ones. She bought a mean old milk cow named Red. It was a Hereford-Ayrshire mix, in case any of you are farmers and know how weird that is. Some cheap calves at auction to raise for meat, and some chickens for eggs. She also grew a hell of a garden and canned 200 quarts of tomatoes. I have seen this small woman lug 50-pound feed bags, 80-pound bales of hay, and when it was time to restring the pasture fence, she wrestled railroad ties for us to use as fence posts. I should not say this, but she may have stolen some of those from alongside the railroad tracks. And furthermore, once she saw how big and strong I was going to be, she put me to work. When I was 9, she taught me to milk the cow so I could do the evening milking duty. We didn't know any better than to just pour the milk through a coffee filter and drink it just like that. Now I think the raw milk lifestyle we enjoyed is illegal in about 11 states. The winter I was 10, our barnyard pipes froze, so for months I carried dozens of 5-gallon pails of water before and after school. We chopped wood to keep the fire going and the house warm. Some summers we brought in thousands of bales of hay. And I think that working kids the way Mom did is also illegal in a number of states, isn't it? Okay. Among the many realizations I've had in my writing life, most important was realizing that writing well was not a matter of being brilliant. Writing, it turns out, is just more hard work. It turned out when I was working on my first serious story, it was called Sleeping Sickness, and it's in my first collection, and I realized you could work on the same damn story every day, day after day after day after month after month after month, and you could keep on working. It happened to be about a mother who slept all the time, and this was not my mom. But I kept on working on that story, and then I kept on working, and I kept on working. And once I made that discovery that writing a story was something like digging a ditch, or chopping wood, or weeding a garden, or milking a cow twice a day, then I knew I had a chance in this writing business. Brilliance you can't count on, but hard work, I could do that. And I was raised for that. Case in point, bringing Belle home in American Salvage took me 24 years to write. Maybe some of you think that writing is going to get easier. And how many writers are in here? Maybe some of you think it's going to get easier as you go on. No. Sometimes at the beginning it's easier because you don't know what you're doing, and you just do it. You don't know any better. As an aside, some writers are always saying how their characters take over the story and write the story themselves. Well, give me some of that. My characters are the laziest of actors. They lie around on their comfy lounge chairs waiting for me to tell them what to do. When I get up in the morning to write, which I do 7 days a week, the characters are all staring at me out of my computer screen, waiting for direction. They want me to do the hard work. The second thing I learned from Mom is that reading is really great. Recently, I heard my mom tell my brother she wasn't going to do something like haul wood anymore because that was a man's job. I nearly choked on my stalk of raw asparagus, which is really good raw. I'm surprised people don't eat it raw more. She's got a lot of it, Mom does. If we remember to run the brush hog over it and get the stuff out of it. Well, there's got to be some advantage to getting older, and now she spends a lot of time reading. She reads about 5 books a week. Is that right, Mom? About 5 books a week?
More. Everything that you give. Plus, I'm actually keeping a notebook. Someday I'm going to be able to look it up. I inherited books from my parents that they didn't take with me.
So if anybody wants some old books, come talk to us afterwards.
I handed her a book the other day that was my oldest aunt. Name was in it. When we looked it up, it was $125 for that book I gave.
Oh, I better give it back. All right, thanks, Mom. She read to us kids when we were little, and we had a lot of books in the house, including the Nancy Drew series, and a lot of books like Black Beauty. We did not have a TV in the house for most of my growing up. We didn't get one until my brother, not this brother, started dealing drugs and bought one himself. But it was locked in his room. And for the record, my brother straightened up his act decades, and he is a positive member of society. Not this one, he's a good one.
There's 2 others, you know.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to confess that I am not a kid who went to bed with a flashlight under my covers. I was not really a bookworm. I really wasn't. But I usually fell to bed exhausted, but otherwise I was out chasing boys at night. I got to say, if I didn't want to sleep, I would sneak out my bedroom window and run into the night and have adventures, and especially with boys. You can ask my mother if this is true. I used to go out into the night and travel miles and hide in shrubbery and peek in the windows of bedrooms of boys I liked. Reading is always worthwhile, but it's not always easy for me. A lot of you, it's just easy. It's like floating down a stream, but it's really not easy for me. God, I feel like I've read this to you guys before. Have you guys ever heard this story before? Okay, good. All right, well, there's more to say about Mom. So occasionally I lose my willpower and I don't read, and you'll find me in front of the television eating cupcakes, or else out staring at the inmates. I live next to a minimum security prison. Do you guys know they're all sex offenders next to me? I'm serious. I'll show them to you. Come to see me. And I live next to 80 sex offenders. And do you guys know what minimum security means in a prison? It means they don't lock the doors. I'm just saying, that's what minimum security means. You think it means something like the security for you need is minimum or something, but no, it means they don't lock the doors. That's how minimal the security is. Yeah, I just figure anybody could break a window if they want to. So the third thing is watching my mom has taught me to take an interest in people around me and to engage them in conversation willy-nilly. So I do read every day, but what I really love is to talk to people. My mom is, and I am too, the person who talks to everybody at the post office. I love to chat with the postal clerk and the grocery store cashiers and the librarians and the guys at the oil change shop, and they tell me to get back in the car, and I don't. I just stand there and watch what they're doing. I love to hear people's stories and to learn how they feel about life and its challenges, and I've found if you just show some interest, people will tell you incredible things. Most of what I've learned in life has come from talking to people. I'm happy when I'm sitting at a table sharing stories, jokes, and anecdotes. I'm happy to meet someone who has a new experience I've never dreamed of, and it turns out everyone has such experiences. My mother's mother, Betty, used to do the same thing, even though she was kind of a city person, and Mom was a country person. Occasionally I get story ideas from the people I talk to, but more often what I've gotten are glimpses and insights into the human psyche and the soul, and that is worth more than any story plot. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I think of all my writing first and foremost as communication. I know I'm supposed to think of it as art, but I think of it very much as something that's going on between me and the reader. Okay, number 4, lesson from Mom. Men are great to have around, but they have their limitations, and you might not want to depend on them too much. I know, I shouldn't say that. Susanna taught me to be independent. And I'll make the case that being capable and independent has helped me stay happily married for 28 years to the same dude, darling Christopher. You might have noticed that fiction writers, novelists especially, are often people who need to live calm, sensible lives. A novelist needs a life without drama in order that she can deliver all the drama to the page. Mom also taught me to keep an eye out for what's most interesting right around me, right in my own neighborhood. Mom could always find interesting people in her own community, though her parents had been city people. From the time Susanna was young, she hung out with the old farmers, and she talked to them about how to raise animals and gardens and to drive wells and build barns. If anyone is interested in saving a dwindling resource, it would be the knowledge of those old men and women from American farms. They knew how to do everything, and they could do it really cheaply. If my biggest realization was about writing being hard work, then my second one was the realization that I should write about Michigan people, the kind of people with whom I'm familiar, the people from my own tribe. I have special knowledge. I have special knowledge about what people around here are like. I know what skills they have about scrapping metal for money and stealing railroad ties and castrating pigs. These are poor and working class people and farmers who fix their own cars and work low-paying jobs often that aren't satisfying. And maybe they drink too much, these people, and maybe they love uncarefully. So many people say write about what you know, and it's tempting to discount it because you always hear it. But I came to understand that old saw in my own way. I lived in the city for a while, and I used to try to write about generic people who didn't live any particular place. Or else I did want to write about city people. Like people in Chicago seem more exciting than my own people. But when I lived in Boston, I once told a group of people about my mom gathering everybody up to go haul a dead frozen cow out of a neighbor's pond where she'd fallen in and drowned. She'd fallen through the ice. The neighbor had said we could have the meat. So the whole family went to retrieve this cow with a boat and a chainsaw and a winch. And I think we had a boat at one point, a boat to go out on the ice. Well, I could tell by the looks on these sophisticated city faces that this sort of activity was something new and interesting to them. It turned out that my knowledge and experience of life has given me some stories to tell. She also taught me to keep things lively. In the moral universe, where we live our real lives and eat breakfast and go to work, the worst crime is murder, or maybe torture and murder. But in the writing universe, the universe of stories, murder and torture and mayhem are all just fine. In fact, in some genres, murder is a requisite. The real unforgivable crime for all writers is the crime of being dull. While I'm revising, which is 95% of what I do, maybe 98%, I'm continually searching what I've written to eliminate places where the story is bogging down, where a character is feeling self-pity or being melodramatic. In the moral universe, where we eat breakfast, we all feel self-pity, and we all indulge in melodrama, and we whimper and whine, but there is no need for it on the pages of a story. When our reader can so easily put down the book and turn on the TV to a cop show and eat some cupcakes. Every moment of a book has to be interesting. She taught me that. She also taught me, don't take yourself so seriously. If I could show you a couple photos right now, I'd start with one of Mom and I butchering a rooster a couple years ago. The rooster started out nice as a nice enough barred rock fellow. He was big and strong with glossy black and white plumage. But then he started picking on the hens, causing the hens to pick on one another. Everybody was losing their feathers. Then he started attacking my great nieces when they went in to collect eggs. For the next photo, I would then show you a photo of 3 things on a blue and white plate. 2 testicles and a chicken heart. You would notice that each of the rooster's balls are bigger than his heart. The job of a writer is twofold. One half of your job requires you to take yourself and your vision and ideas and sensibility very seriously, to have confidence that what you write matters, and it matters enough for you to neglect your family and friends and especially your housework. As Jane Smiley told the New York Times, "My mess reminds me that I can choose to write or I can choose to clean, and I have always chosen to write." And the other half of your job as a writer is to be humble and open to constructive criticism that can make your work better. This might come from friends or editors or even from your mom, but mostly it has to come from your own critical self. You must be prepared to admit and acknowledge you are just plain wrong at times, that your work is just not good enough yet. And then you have to go back and find the confidence again, because you have to believe that you can do what it takes to be able to make it good enough. And sometimes when it's rough going with the story I'm working on, I need to remember that writing is just part of the life. There are other things. Family, friends, food, more food, and wine, and my donkeys, Jack and Don Quixote, who don't give a fig about my success or failure. And there's the joy of talking to people in line at the post office, and where we're all waiting to renew our driver's license. I used to brag to people in other states about how great it was at the Secretary of State here. Do you remember? You didn't used to have to wait in line. Now it's like I was number 85 and they were on 10 when I went in there. Mom taught me that it's okay to hide the really good chocolate away from your kids and your husband. I mean, seriously, are they going to appreciate it? Also, always keep in mind how things affect those who are not doing as well as you are. Don't be fooled by don't be lured in by what seems respectable. Keep in mind what helps people get by. The only time I saw Mom get politically active recently was when she found out that our little Michigan township of Comstock was going to pass an ordinance that said people could not work on their cars in their driveways. It seemed that some people who apparently did not have to fix their cars thought that fixing one's own car in the driveway made the street look messy. Well, my mom gathered up everybody she could find to go down to the meeting and remind folks on the board that this was a community in which poor people, many of whom didn't have garages, were trying to survive and keep their cars running as best they could with few resources in order to get to their low-paying jobs. She reminded them it's an important skill in the community for kids to learn how to fix cars, and the driveway is where they learn it. And I have found much of my inspiration comes from understanding how poor people and people who are working hard and still poor make it happen in America, where the cards and laws stack up against them. And I consider it an important part of my job to show readers a picture of those who are struggling near the economic bottom, even if they are a little less attractive than those at the top. I mean, in the eye of the beholder, I guess. Mom is still teaching me how to live passionately and not play it too safe. While my mom is still usually the smartest woman in the room, and I'll stand by that, have I mentioned she knows how to build highway bridges as well as to make really good cabbage rolls, and she will tell you either one of those. She's maybe getting a little frail. She just had her shoulder replaced, and I think we're on surgery number 6 of the last year and a half. 7, okay. I'd like her to slow down and take it easy, but she lets me know she doesn't intend to. She still parties heartily. She has the same passion for partying that I have for writing. She has a few friends who take her to rowdy events, and one pulled me aside recently and said, "You know, this could kill her. Somebody threw her in the swimming pool last week. If you don't want me to take her out, I won't." You don't know he said that, do you, Mom? And I said, though I'd like to put her on a special diet of healthy foods and moderation of all kinds, I say, take her where she wants to go and make sure she has fun. Mom has taught me to prevail. Without saying as much, she has taught me to keep going, keep working at whatever I was trying to do, and thus prove myself more powerful than the opposing forces. She has used the word prevail rebelliously, saying she would personally prevail when she got divorced, when somebody cheated her on a horse trade, or when some jealous wife put the kibosh on some of her fun. Even when her own body threatens to fail her. Prevail. For me as a writer, my own self-doubt is often the toughest opposing force. If the problem is that I'm feeling crappy about myself and my writing, then the solution is to write more and keep writing, to write better, to write something else. The cow has to be milked morning and night, and the story needs to be written, no matter how crappy you might feel. I took the long way to writing. Though writing was always my dream, I studied philosophy in college, and then education. I went on to get my master's degree in mathematics. I was afraid to commit to writing. I was afraid of failing in such a competitive field, but I could not give up writing. And at age of 35, with the encouragement of my PhD advisor, I took my first serious writing course. There I met the powerful force of nature that was soon to be National Book Award winning Jamie Gordon, who has been a whole other kind of mother to me. And ever since then, I've just had to keep working hard, keep on keeping it lively, and employ all those other lessons I learned from Susanna and from the other mothers I've picked up along the way. Thank you.